So first of all, thanks, Pierre, because I was hoping to talk to like 2 or 3 people. But now everybody's here today. So.
First go.
Yeah, right? This is get ready. So raise your hand if you have heard the name Jay Ferreira and 2533 Eucalyptus. I know Paul has, and Andy. And oh, Raphael's not here. So I'm an architect. As in most of my projects, everything's going pretty smoothly and we're on a pretty good track, and then all of a sudden the client calls an audible and everything changes. So I was going to talk to you today about a project that actually Dante Miller, for those of us who've met Dante, and I were working on in Laguna Beach. Not a 10,000 square foot home, but pretty much almost an unlimited budget. Very cool project. That one's still going. Apart from that, it suddenly dawned on me that a lot of us here are working on this 2533 Eucalyptus in Long Beach, and probably more of us will be in the future. So I thought I'd talk about this one instead. I'll give us a little bit of context and then kind of show somewhat my process and where the project is now. But a little bit of background. So basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, this gentleman, Jay, he contacted you through Google, right? And then Andy immediately turned around and called Raphael and I. We hopped on a call, and it turns out that Jay is a really great guy. He's what I'm gathering bit by bit, we've been working together now for maybe 3 or 4 months. What I'm gathering is he works at a larger development firm in the San Diego area, but he's kind of branching into development on his own. And so he's picked up this property in Long Beach. It's a ripe property for an accessory dwelling unit or an ADU. And actually some cities are really great for ADUs and development, and some cities are really not. And Long Beach so far is turning out to be kind of in between. But what they're going to so far allow him to do is to build 2 ADUs in the backyard of this home. And he's looking at it completely as income property. So the home that's there now is already a duplex, so that's 2 units. He came to us and he wanted to build 2 ADUs, so that would be 4 total. And then he said, hey, could we do 2 more ADUs that are part of the existing building? And we said no. And he said, okay, fine. And then a few days went by and he's like, hey, what if we built 2 more ADUs? That's probably, I can't help but laugh. What if we did 2 more ADUs to get to a total of 6? And I said, we can't. And then a few more days went by, and again, this is just like a broken record. And his goal, and Paul will know better about this than I do, is to get a commercial loan. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is if he can get to 6 units or 5 units or more, it can be a commercial loan. Whereas if it's 4 that he's planning on, it can't. So that's kind of his goal. I don't know what the reasoning is behind it. Maybe the rates are better, maybe the deal is better, but so all that being said, here's Brian. Hello, Brian. You can, yeah. Welcome, Brian. Front and center now. Okay, so this project is in Long Beach, and let me show. I don't know if the internet's still working here. See if I can zoom in. Okay, so basically there's a duplex up front, and in the back there's a garage, and so we did these different concept studies for him. And this might look like a lot of lines that are not the easiest to read, but I'll try to be brief. Okay, so up front, for those of you on Zoom, is the existing duplex, and in the back, in all of these hatch cross lines, is an existing garage. And we went through a bunch of different studies. One of them was to convert the garage into an ADU, another one was to demo the garage, one was to add on to the existing duplex, another was to build apart from the existing duplex. But basically the first thing we had to do was just listen, because he had a goal in mind. He had something that he was trying to get to. We knew, Raphael, when I say we, Raphael and I knew pretty much from the start that what he wanted was not going to completely work. But the important thing was not to say, hey, that's not going to work. The important thing was to say, okay, what can we do, right? Because we have to try to be constructive and try to keep it moving forward. So what we ended up doing was to design the project in a way that if it is the ADUs that he wants, and it cannot get, and we can't get the additional ADUs, we don't have to change the whole set, because then he's just embarking down a road that is just going to cost him more time and more money, and he's going to end up frustrated. So what we ended up doing was we said, this is the garage area in the back. So we'll demo the garage, we'll put 2 ADUs in the back, and we'll add on to the duplex, and we'll call them ADUs, and we'll take it to the city, and we'll try to submit to the city. This is where Andy's helped out a great deal. We'll try to submit to the city, and if they say, hey, you can do 4 ADUs because he's pushing the envelope, then great. And if not, we don't have to change the plans. We have to change maybe a couple labels, but we don't have to change the design, and they just become an addition to the duplex. The reason I bring all this up is because this is like on a daily basis, in the sense that somebody has a goal in mind. Their goal may not be something that's compatible with the way the code works, but we're still trying to get as close to that goal as we can. They know, I mean, this gentleman, Jay, he's smart. He knows that there's a high risk and there's a possibility that he's not going to get what he wants, but we're going to get close. And it's a game. And it's a game that I've played for a long time, and I really enjoyed the game. But it's basically, sometimes you have to push too far and tell the city that you're wanting too much, and the city goes, no, 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 in order to back off a little bit. But that part where they back off to is even further than he would have gone in, and he would have got if he just, took the regular road, if you will. So it's a lot of back and forth. So what ended up happening is Andy submitted for us to the city. We're going in with the 2 duplexes or 2 ADUs in the back, and then the additions to the duplex in the front. So he's going to essentially get all of the built-up space that he wanted. He just can't call them 2 additional ADUs. So at the end of the day, he should have 4 units, not 6. And then here's the kicker. What he does with those 4 units and their 2 additions is kind of out of our hands. And what I mean by that is, this happens a lot. He's probably going to go in, get these permitted, build the 2 ADUs in the back, build the additions, and then rent them out separately anyway. Now that's not in our purview. We're not here to tell him that he can or cannot do. That's kind of between him and the city. It's kind of borderline as to whether he should take that route or not, but that's, we're sort of beyond where we stop.
Can he convert, once they're constructed, can he convert them to junior ADUs after they're done?
Legally, no.
Okay.
But here's the other part of the game. The codes are always changing, especially with ADUs. So in 2 years' time, maybe.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Raphael told us the other day when we were out that there's a new update coming to where right now, if you have a home and you build an ADU in the back, you cannot sell that ADU, separately from the home. But that law is changing to where now you will be able to sell that ADU separately. It's a big game changer because a lot split. It also means that it changes the marketing of who goes after those properties.
To create a new address.
Right. Create a new address so you can sell it. What they do with it once you sell it. So we see these kinds of things all the time. Let me see if I can show you something a little bit more interesting.
If that law changes, will it be for all of California or just?
It would be for all of California, yeah.
I think your president says the city has to opt in, but those are the kinds of things that over time do get folded in.
Right, you're exactly right, yeah. Okay, so what I showed you in the beginning, obviously that was just Google Maps. On the second piece there, we're starting with a site plan because what we're trying to do is figure out exactly where all these puzzle pieces fit, where these Tetris or Lego pieces fit. Once we get into the design and we've got some sort of buy-off on what their goals are and what we think that we can achieve, now we're working in 3D, and this is an example of the 3D plans for this project. So this is the duplex in the back. It's 2 stories. Sorry for my terminology. These are the ADUs in the back, 2 stories. So there's one accessory dwelling unit downstairs and 1 accessory dwelling unit upstairs. This is the existing duplex here at the front, and then this is the addition to that piece at the back. And the way that we set it up is that there's a little front door and living room and kitchen and a bathroom for the one on the ground floor, and then exactly the same for the one upstairs. So at the end of the day, forgetting what the loan side or the financial side looks like, he's got 6 units and he could rent them out as 6 units, and that's achieving his goal. It's not going to go through the city that way. These are going to be just additions to the duplex, but at the end of the day, he can probably just close off that door and rent it out.
Yeah, and those, I can't see, sorry, but those 2 additions have access from outside the unit.
Right. Yeah. So technically, these 2 additions, they connect internally as well.
For the door.
Right, that's right, with a door. If they were ADUs specifically, they could not, but he can just close that off, right? I mean, what people do post-permit, we see all the time, can vary.
Now, do you have to deal with different fire and sound code on the ADU versus the addition?
You do.
So the addition, you don't have to do the resilient channel or doing any of
Right.
okay.
Right. So what Paul's talking about is when you have an existing building, an existing house, let's say, and you build an ADU, the building code looks at that as a different unit, as if it's like a duplex or a triplex or whatever. And when you have 2 units that are adjacent to each other, they have to essentially have a firewall in between it. And there's sound attenuation, and there's insulation, and there's different levels of chipboard that separate those 2. When it's an addition, you don't have to do that. In this case, the way we've designed it is that it's a different unit. So it's already going to have on the plans called out for that insulation, for the
so
channel.
you are calling all that out.
Yeah, and he knows that, and he wants that because his ultimate goal is to have it be a separate unit. Yeah. So the idea is that if down the road the law changes and he can actually get that done legally, then all he's really doing is closing up a door and he's good to go. Whereas if you build it and it's just an addition and later you want to convert it, you've got to pull drywall off, you've got to put insulation in, you've got to put resilient channel in. It's a whole different thing. Then on top of all that, these 2 units are separate from each other. So you got to do that all in the ceiling. So if we build it all in the beginning and we design it all in the beginning, it saves tons of time and money for the client and for the builder. Let's see, what else can I tell you? So, like I mentioned, Andy so politely took this one down to the city, and I think he went down 3 times before we could even submit
Felt
to the
like
city.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's another thing is that when you're working with even ADU laws that have been around now for several years, the cities are still getting their heads around them. And when you talk to Planner A, they will give you a different answer than Planner B and Planner C. And then on top of that, you're making these tough decisions for these clients and these decisions that have repercussions of, hundreds of thousands of dollars based on what the planner has told you or the building inspector has told you on sort of day one, and you're guessing. And then even when you get to submit, those rules might have changed. And the person that's actually doing the review may be giving you a different answer than what you were given up front. And it really doesn't matter in the sense that there's nothing you can do. You're not going to sue the city, right? Your client's not going to sue the city. It would never be worth it. My fees aren't high enough. And so you're doing a lot of guesswork. And I think Paul and Steve, you guys have seen this a lot lately. I love your quick calls where you're like, okay, look up this address, tell me what you can do with that. And I'm getting a lot more of those calls lately. With this gentleman as well, this Jay, he has property in San Diego, and he's driving around and he'll see that something is for sale, and he'll call me up and he's like, Simon, how many units can I get on here? And then he'll put in an offer.
No kidding, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like ambulance chasing in that sense. And so then it means that the projects are changing all the time. So he's looking at a property in Chula Vista, and somehow, again, I can't help but laugh. This is just a single family detached property. Somehow he got word that he is able to fit up to 12 units on one piece of property. And I looked at it, and there's an existing duplex. So there are 2 on there right now, and he's thinking he's going to get to 12. Yeah. And I'm like, we can get to 12 if you have no parking requirement, which is unheard of. That's not going to happen. He's like, okay, well, let's go for it. And he's like, the city's got an overlay zone, and they want to encourage development here, and they want this to become a place, revitalized street. So we called the city, And the city basically says, no, we don't have a no parking requirement. We have a worse parking requirement than probably any other multifamily project I've ever worked on. And not only that, we have a higher open space calculation than probably any other multifamily project I've ever worked on. So you have these competing and contradictory codes. You've got a city that is trying to spur development and trying to revitalize. You've got people that are like Jay, and they're looking to invest and redo property, but then they've written a code structure with all of these pretty renderings and pretty drawings and showing walkable streets and kids playing in parks and all this kind of stuff. But their actual, when you get down to it, their actual code requirements prohibit exactly what they're trying to show in their renderings. And we come across this all the time. So, and I have to say, I mean, I've been a part of the rendering team, you know, drawing these types of things. So everybody's sort of got this beautiful vision of what it can be, and then there comes reality of that parking is a real bear, and open spaces are there, and where does the trash go, and how does the fire access work, and all that kind of stuff. So, what else can I tell you? Any questions?
So Simon, what's the parking situation like on 25 Eucalyptus right now?
That is a great question. So, on this street, there are a whole host of, they're not illegal duplexes and triplexes, they are grandfathered units. So this street is actually a very pretty street. It's got, you know, these big oak trees that span the whole, you know, width of the street, and you're kind of driving through that oak tree tunnel. And I mean, this is only a very small snapshot of the front, but you can, there are car after car after car after car. And even though a lot of these homes are deep lots with a home in the front and a garage in the back, they've got plenty of cars on the driveways because you have multiple tenants in what was essentially a single family detached neighborhood. So the cities, and I sympathize or empathize, they're under the gun because the state is pushing for more housing, developers are pushing for more housing, architects always want new projects, and yet their parking, you know, the parking is limited to begin with.
And Long Beach has street sweeping on one side one day, and one side the next. So
Yeah.
2 days a week, there's no parking.
Right. There you go. 2 days a week.
2 days a week.
Yeah. When we were working on the beginning of this project, the city told us that this is also in an overlay zone where there is zero parking requirement because they're trying to spur development and spur growth. But then what ends up happening is you'll get a bunch of projects like these, the streets will fill up even more, and what do the tenants do? They call the city and they complain.
Mm-hmm.
And then the city starts to pull back, and then they, you know, so it's not that the cities are just trying to be a bear, it's that they're dealing with this every day. And if you ask any city planner, their number one complaint from the public is parking. And so that's why every project, if you can solve the parking situation, the utility situation, all of the not nice stuff, all of the not design stuff, then the rest of it kind of falls into place. Let me see, let me show you this house in Laguna, just because it's interesting.
I remember back in the day, people would put an addition on, and then they wouldn't put a kitchen in, and then they'd get the sign off, and then they'd go and put the kitchen in. Do they still
Yes.
do a lot of
Yeah,
that?
like post-permit stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, then you try to sell it
And then it's not permitted.
Absolutely, and that's usually the big problem. And sometimes when we go into a house or into a first site meeting, the first question is this your forever home? Or are you thinking that you may be here for a few years and then you're gonna sell it? Because if they don't get it permitted, then it's gonna come back to bite them. We get probably 5 to 10% of the people that call us, they may have bought the home and they say they don't know. Whether they know or don't know, I mean, it kind of doesn't matter. They may have bought the home, you know, as is, and it turns out that there's a piece that was not permitted, and they ask if we can get it permitted. And 9 times out of 10, yeah, without having to take it down. You just have to go through the normal process. The city has to review it like they normally would. Again, they may have to take out some drywall and do some inspections, but I would say 99% of the time we don't have to tear something down. occasionally there is a patio cover or something that, okay, there's a cost associated with that, but it's not like taking out a living room or a kitchen or something like that, and they have to get it redone. But there is a lot of illegal development that then can come back to bite you. I probably don't have a great overall shot of this home, but this is on Dunning Drive. This is in Laguna Beach. I met Dante out here months ago, probably May-ish, and this is a really cool house. It's let me see if I can just kind of cycle through a little bit. It's basically, the structure of this home it's almost an exoskeleton. And I think what happened was they designed this home and they built this home probably in the 50s, 60s, 70s. It's built like an A-frame, almost just a straight triangle. And then it looks like they went back in sometime like maybe in the 80s and 90s and they reinforced it. And there are all these metal columns on the outside of the home supporting beams. Because Laguna is really great at keeping records, to your chagrin sometimes. They've put in foundations and columns all the way around the home to reinforce it. So like I said, the structure of this home is almost on the outside and the inside sort of just floating, which is kind of interesting. What the homeowner wants to do is, you can see over here on the right, they've got these diagonal bracing. That's part of the carport. Let's see if I can show you that better. It's got a beautiful view of the canyon. This is the carport, and they want to convert this into a accessory dwelling unit, into an ADU. At the same time, they want to keep the existing structure. And so these big diagonal braces, I think these are like 4x12s. They end up being like right in the middle of the living room, because there's nowhere else for them to go. But this was a fun one. I was trying to figure out where we could actually put a door, because with that being on a diagonal, it's like you can't put the door anywhere from this point horizontally all the way over to that point. So it takes up, like most of the wall, and you're trying to fit in this door on the right hand side. They want to put an ADU downstairs, and then upstairs build an addition. This is the living room upstairs, and they want to basically pull this out over the carport. And they have this really nice balcony upstairs. It's all uncovered, looks out to the canyon and out to the water down a long distant view. And they want to extend that out over the canyon another 20 feet or so. And the property that they own, it runs down the hillside probably another 100 feet, 150 feet. I mean, they've got land for days, that's no problem. But it all starts to descend, right? So the further out you go, the taller that deck and the taller those pylons have to be.
So
Caissons, yeah, to support it. But a really cool home. I mean, this is all open inside. They have a built-in little library with one of those ladders that kind of is on the truck, right? So fun. Apparently, the home was originally built for a couple professors, and then it was sold to this family. The owners, this happens a lot. The owners are the parents. So let's say like they're my parents' age. Those are the owners, and then the people that live there are the folks that are, let's say, they're my age. The owners are, I think they're in Wisconsin. So everything we did with them is on Zoom, and they're the ones making the decisions. But the influencers, the ones who have a say on what's going on, are the ones that are living here, the kids and the grandkids. So there's a lot of dynamics in who has the money and who has the ownership and who's actually living there. And so a lot of time we're just listening and then finally trying to find that that nice solution in between everything. Let me see if I can show you.
Simon, how's Laguna Beach with ADUs?
Oh, it's a bear. This will be better. Hang on a second. So this is a rendering. This is a design view from the outside looking back. So the existing home is this piece here, and then this part of the kitchen and dining room here. This is all of the decking that they're adding, exterior stair, new railings. This is the ADU down below, and then the home addition up above. And then the canyon's kind of like dropping off behind us. Laguna Beach is really difficult to get hold of. I will call and I will email and I will get crickets you know, and these are, you know, these are $100,000 to $1 million decisions that these homeowners are making, and their rules are changing, not only for the ADUs but also because of the coastal commission. So when a project is an ADU and it's in the coastal zone, you have to replace parking. Whereas in other areas that are not in the coastal zone, you don't have to replace parking. Well, that's a big deal, because if somebody tells you they want to convert their garage into an ADU, which is perfectly legal, but now they have to build a garage in order to pick up that, you know, parking space they lost, why would you build an ADU? Or why would you build a garage? You just build an ADU. So they fight each other all the time. Show you some. But anyway, this is the one I was working on with Dante. Dante, I didn't realize this about him until we started working together. He's super organized. He's great at communication. He's really good at getting deals. And then, unfortunately, sometimes, you know, as happens with all of us, the deals drop out for him. So he had teamed up with a builder, and I'm still working with the builder. And they're, you know, they seem to be really great people, but basically, I think they had some sort of an issue that they couldn't come to agreement on with Dante, and Dante bailed out. So he was sort of my contact and my client, if you will, and then he had to bail out, and that left me with the builder. And luckily, you know, we've got a decent relationship going, but I hadn't met the builder, and I hadn't talked to them for anything because everything had been through Dante. So we got to this point where we're basically ready to submit to the city, and then Dante left. So he's no longer involved in this one in particular. This sort of shows you the view from the deck, kind of out to the canyon, and then the water's out beyond. I think that's the last one. Anyway, that's a fun one. So this one is, we're trying to go to the city. Most of the time, if we do an addition or an ADU, we don't need a survey, we don't need a geotech report, we don't need civil engineering. I probably just named about $15,000 to $20,000 of costs that we don't normally need. If you do a detached ADU, a lot of times we need those things. So we went into this project not needing those, and then we get to the city and they're like, oh yeah, check, 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 check. You need all these things. Why? Everything is being built in the existing footprint. There's no need for a survey because the building isn't really growing beyond where it stands right now. So now we're in a negotiation with the city as to why but they have just these bar none, just check, 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 check all this. Yeah.
Each check costs $5,000
or more.
And you
Yeah.
have to get a lot of times neighbor sign offs.
Neighbor sign off.
Not one,
Right.
5 neighbor sign offs.
Yeah.
So you might have 4 and one's a holdout, and so
Yeah.
you might wait for months for a neighbor to sign off.
Yeah.
To wait in line at their front door.
Yeah.
Right.
Bring in baked goods, everything.
Yeah.
That's true.
Anyway, I like it. I really enjoy doing this. I just wanted to show you a little bit of the process that we're going through. Last time I talked more about my experience with planning and with international work. This is kind of more what I do on a daily basis now. Yeah, any questions?
So for both of these, how far along do you go with the plans themselves to go to planning? You don't have it engineered yet, correct?
So this one we do, but that's a really great question. So when they're sort of, I don't know if contentious is the right word, but maybe risky, when they're risky projects, a lot of times we'll do, okay, so let's say this way. I do 3 phases, as you know, Paul. The first phase is sort of just concept plans. The second phase is sort of the 2D, the sort of white buildings that you saw on the other slide. And then the third phase is like the full renderings and full construction documents. If we've got a risky project, then we can start with just the first phase and go to the city with that and try to get some as close to real answers as we can get. And it's sort of a minimal investment from the homeowner's side and from our side. And at least there's something to react to, right? There's a site plan, there's got dimensions to it. It's showing what we're trying to achieve, and then they can kind of give us some feedback. And then if we can go a little bit further and do like the plans in 3D, but not get to structural engineering. And I know Kyle's chomping at the bit to do the structural engineering, but sometimes he has to wait. Then we can try to get some more answers and be more sure, and then launch into the last phase. So we try to stagger it. So let's say on a typical project, a first phase might be $2,500. Okay, so it's not nothing, but it's not $30,000, right? Second phase, maybe it's another $2,500, $3,500. And then that third phase, if all of those players are involved, it might be $20,000. So to save that much money until they really know whether it's going to go forward or not makes a big difference. Right, and then it also has ripple effects, because then let's say we get Kyle involved, we get Andy involved, then we're getting, you know, big bid packages out to builders, you know, and so you've got a lot of people with time invested, and everybody's waiting for this project to come. So, anything
Well
else?
done.
Yeah.
Wow,
Thank you.
nice.
Thank you.